leading chain of stores, Azar Fashions, a name we are all familiar with. And she has been the front runner in modernizing her business in the current situation today. So Devangi, starting with you, I have a few questions for you. Also, you will be moderating the session today. So we're really looking forward to that. But before you can begin, I have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
My first question is, how have you coped with the sudden fall in sales, rents, staff salaries? Of course, I think it must have been a very big concern in the current scenario. So please enlighten us and share your ideas for the same.
Well, this has definitely been an extremely unprecedented time for everyone in the industry. I mean, everybody across the world, of course. And I think in challenging times, the question becomes, how can we leverage the existing time to and leverage our strengths in the existing times to do the best we can. So as an organization, Azar has always been very, very bullish about our digital strategy. We were actually one of the first people in the luxury space in India to get on social media. And we were one of the first websites in India to do e-commerce for luxury Indian designer wear. So I started azarfashions.com actually 5 years ago. And that has been our sort of shining strength through this time. Retail stores, as we all know, through those 2 months, like no one could go, it was complete lockdown. And even now there is, of course, apprehension around visiting the stores. People are worried about safety. So through this time, what we've done is really push everybody to go online. And I think one silver lining of this period has been that customers who would otherwise even have been apprehensive about shopping online have become more comfortable with the process. And so we've seen actually a year-on-year spike in our sales online, which is sort of holding us through. And it's interesting because, you know, when we started the website, a lot of people thought that digital stores would hold the tech, would carry the digital storefront. Whereas now the inverse is true. It's the digital storefront which is actually carrying the stores. And to our, our entire team has been so supportive. And they have been working very hard to get all the pieces which are in the stores online. And we've been doing non-stop events online. In fact, we've onboarded so many more designers on our website through the period. So I think hats off to our team for really working hard and ensuring that the website is pulling the company through.
Great. So that must be also opening up opportunities for those designers who find it as such very tough to start out in the industry of fresh.
Definitely. So, you know, this is one of the things that when my mom started Azar, this was something that she really wanted to create, which was a one-stop shop, one platform for all the immense talent that this country has to offer. And when I started azarfashions.com, my goal was similarly to take that platform global. And through the lockdown, we really introspected and we thought about what is it that we want to achieve, with keeping in mind the goal of my mother when she started the organization. And we realized that it would be amazing to actually bring more brands on our website, which are smaller and might be struggling. And it's been really fruitful as an endeavor, because a lot of brands have told us that the orders that they received through that period have sort of carried them through, and that makes us really happy.
Great. My next question for you, what can the government do to help aid and boost Made in India, and what are you doing as a retailer to make this happen?
So I think, to the government's credit, they have really emphasized the whole Make in India movement for the last few years, and now also with vocal for local, and the entire concept of buying Made in India. I think it is very important, and it is high time that we all buy products which are made in India. This is something that we've always believed in from the start. 100% of everything we sell at Azar is made in India, and we fully support this cause. It's so important. Like, you look all over the world and you see beautiful things. Sure, there's no problem in buying it, but the kind of talent and the kind of creativity that you get in India is not available anywhere else in the world, and I strongly believe that. And now is the time to really leverage that and to support that community of artisans that we have in this country. So as an organization, to be honest, everything we do is towards this cause.
On that beautiful note, I would like to hand over the baton to you to take the session forward.
Yeah. So I'm super excited to be, having this opportunity to chat with Bahaar, with Rahul, and with Ridhi. So I'm going to start with Rahul. How has this new world with COVID-19 in it changed you as a person? And what keeps you motivated and inspired through challenging times? What is your mantra for positivity and success?
I think for us, for everybody, obviously, like this has been a very challenging time. But at the same time, it's just about like every time is like that. The future has never been certain. So if you think about future being certain and whatever we plan, so man plans, God disposes. So man proposes, God disposes. That's a very, very famous thing. And apart from that, what is in my hand, I try to do. Like while I was working, I tried to do that. I kept on working at my design team, which was trying to work from home. We kept on engaging with everybody. With all the craft people, I kept on working, just with the hope that probably, whatever we are doing one day, and somehow when I got invited for the digital haute couture in Paris, and I realized that entire process of keep creating things with whatever team is there with you. Like as a brand, we are used to working with more than 1,000 people at any given time. So at that point in time, probably I was working with just odd 100 people, and including me, my team, everybody. But we just did not stop working. So that was the best thing. And you know, feeling positive about everything. We are also very lucky to be in extremely creative process. That also somehow takes away all the stress, all the tension, and all the tension of the work. So
Mhm.
that has been one of the things. And then after that, as lockdown opened, we started putting things together for haute couture in Paris, and then we had to do a digital showcase from India. And somehow, I'm just sharing with you, my last haute couture week in Paris has costed me around 1.5 crores. This digital show only costed me 5 lakhs rupees, and,
Wow.
just for producing the film. So for me, it was a big cost saving, and at the same time, the way it was promoted, the way from Financial Times to New York Times, globally everybody wrote about that. In India also, people had a lot more attention. So I think the reward of keep working during even most difficult times and keep your creative juices flowing always helps you mentally as well as, I would say, financially also.
Right, right. That's a lovely thought. And we're going to come back to you to discuss your Paris Couture Week show a little bit more. But before that, Bahaar, I would want to know, you're a multidisciplinary artist, you paint, you sculpt, and the lockdown, I think, was a period of introspection for all of us. And especially for you as an artist, I'm sure it was a period of great creativity. So if you could share your thoughts and insights as to, what came out of that period for you as an artist.
Okay, luckily, I swerved directions from being a full-time lawyer to a lawyer and an artist. So I infused my life with color pretty early on, before the pandemic had set on. So I think I was already charged and I knew what my life would be like. So apart from being really interested in social issues and directly helping people out in their day-to-day lives, I also realized that somewhere my purpose in life is to create happiness. So when I talk about creating art, I feel that I'm creating happiness and not just a product. It's not just a unique piece of asset. Of course, that's how the society may view it. But for me, if I can make others happy, if the collector is happy with the work that they're engaging with, it's almost like they have a part of my life with them in their homes, a Bahaar art in their homes. That makes me very happy. So when the pandemic hit, I don't think much changed for me in terms of me compromising on, or, I didn't have those issues of laying people off because I had my team with me, my two hands and my mind. So I constantly kept creating. I did not stop. I also realized that this is one time where, artists anyway need to create in isolation. But this is one time I realized I cannot just create in isolation. I need to engage with people to understand what is it that they're feeling, because art is not simply something that is created for its decorative value. It has so much more than its notional value and having a critical purpose involved in it. So I already had like a small but significant presence on my social media, and I decided to leverage on that. Traditionally, a lot of people from the art world do not like exposing their artworks. Like I said, it's a unique piece of asset, so they want to have that whole suspense element involved with them. And art shows are always, synonymous with wine tastings and opening nights, and the paraphernalia in whitewashed walls. Sometime back itself, I wanted to basically bring the art to the masses. And I was already working on that. So last year, I hosted like the biggest public display by an artist. I had some 75 works in a public space because I wanted people who think that art is distant or a matter of luxury, only a privilege of a select few, should also become available to them. So, I had already been working on that whole line of thought where I want to bring art to the masses. So even when I was collaborating with products or brands, I wanted them to realize the relationship between the art and their lifestyle is so seamless. It's actually part of an overall culture. So when my mindset was already in that direction, that I wanted to build all a everybody. Sorry. Yeah. So I was already in that whole motion of creating a landscape where people can interact and interact with artists and art. So I took to my social media and I started describing the artworks. I wanted to bridge that gap between the artist and the audience, not waiting for a gallerist or an NGO to bridge that gap. And I think that kind of helped in a way.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So,
Ridhi, yeah.
Sorry, I was also in the process of making art really affordable. So this pandemic also gave my art a sense of purpose. Instead of waiting for an organization to use my artworks to raise money for charity, I went on my Instagram. I started raising funds for feeding migrant workers. Then I released some Z-Clade limited edition sign prints. And that way I was able to interact with hundreds of people across the country, from Varanasi, Bareilly, places that I couldn't have even imagined that I would be sending my artworks to. And it was amazing because there was so many, there's this legal term called addendum. So it's like meeting of minds from people across the spectrum in the country. And it was such an enriching process because I also kind of understood what they want. And I really do feel in times like extreme situations, unprecedented times like these, an artist cannot operate in isolation. You have to understand, immerse yourself in the poetics of your time, respond to the circumstances, and that's it. I mean, even though so many people told me you should not dilute your product because, it's an artwork, I thought I was being pure to who I want to be and what the purpose of my art. So I was basically ensuring that the art becomes so affordable that nobody should feel that it only belongs to whitewashed galleries, the walls of the galleries, but it belongs to everybody, the grimy fringes. And India is so, I mean, it is the most, it's a land of the most talented people in this country. And a lot of people have this, they get intimidated by art, unfortunately. And the main reason why I swerved more towards art than law in the last few years is because I really want to bring that whole perception back that, art belongs to all of us. And that pandemic was a testing ground for that. And luckily for me also through social media, it's done really well. People were home.
Yeah, I think you've leveraged your social media in an extremely effective manner in order to, share that message across to everyone. So coming to you, Ridhi, speaking of social media, you are one of the youngest and one of the first brands, I would say, to very, very effectively leverage social media to connect with the millennials in terms of fashion. So can you share a little bit about, your idea of content generation and how to stay relevant, how you want to stay relevant through this time? And has your content changed at all, or how are you creating content through this time?
So Devangi, as you pretty much know, and a lot of people have seen, we as a young brand have always believed in creating content and generating content, and that's what we've been doing since the beginning. In fact, we were one of the youngest designers to start on Instagram. We were one of the first to start on Instagram. And it's been a great journey for us. Every year, even before the lockdown, we were creating about 3 to 4 campaigns in a year and generating multiple lookbooks and multiple catalogs. And now, in fact, I feel that due to the dynamic change of the industry, it's become even more important for people to invest in content, and how content has become the king in today's day, because the shift has, there's been a major shift in the demand from offline to online. And it is very, very important to create engaging content and good content. And the importance of it has increased even more in today's day and age. I mean, I'm sure you know, but it's actually become tougher now to shoot content than before, because the safety of your team and your employees is very, very important. But at the same time, it's very, very important to engage in activities which do engage your customers.
Definitely. Thank you. So Rahul, coming to your social media strategy, I think your social media is definitely a reflection of you. It's insightful. It's, very it really sparks, I think, a sense of creativity. So I would like to know, how are you sort of creating content for your audience? And also, there's this very interesting obsession with Bollywood that India has. Bollywood is a religion in India, but you stand out as a designer who pushes more, real customers and real people as through your social media. So can you share a little bit about your thoughts on that?
I've been a kind of late starter, because, you kind of find your own zone, you want to live with that. So for last 2 or 3 years, I've started giving a lot more. You won't believe, after winning Gulma Prize, I think a few months back was the first time on 5th anniversary of Gulma Prize, I posted about winning Gulma Prize. So before that, there was nothing on social media. So I've been a kind of late starter for Instagram and all that, but still I realize it today. It's more about being pure to your voice. It's more about being pure to who you are. And it's not about driving, millions of, audience who are there, because ultimately I also realize one thing. We are not, film stars who are trying to, reach to very wide audience who has to, think like that. Everybody needs to go to watch cinema and they have to buy the ticket, and more people can afford to watch cinema in that way. So we have got a very, very clear-cut idea in that way, that our content, everything has to be created in order to just, feed into, the kind of people, either they are clients who really believe in brand, or they are actually aspiring students or media professionals. So these 3 things. One is obviously your consumer, which is the most important thing. And then it is about having, retail partners, or maybe, some of the, important editors, Tim Blanks and all these guys following you. And then so that they receive all the content, all the WWD or maybe Vogue India, and everybody kind of, looks at what you're doing. And apart from that, it's all about the next generation, students who are studying fashion, or artists who are looking at, in future artists or future creative professionals. So for me, a responsibility of media or my Instagram reaches more, try to balance all these corners. So it's not just about selling an outfit from there. I think it's more to do to show also young people that, hard work, there's no shortcut for hard work. And at the same time, you can make a successful business without really, using Bollywood to your support. You can still, have an authentic crafted product for the people. And one more thing is there about my social media is also not just about, me always being a face of the brand or talking about just fancy product, because we also very rarely, profile brides who are wearing our clothes. We also try to bring transparency of processes which are involved with producing things. I think with the social media post-pandemic, as I said earlier, also in few interactions, the transparency of pricing and processes is really, really important. What makes a luxury product differentiate from a high street brand is only the process. 2 products might look very identical, but what goes in making those makes a huge difference between luxury or not being called luxury. So I think our social media strategy is purely based on that idea.
Yeah, definitely. And your posts are extremely insightful. And I think it's lovely that people can actually see the people who are working on the garment and, what is the process that's going behind it. So that's beautiful. So Bahaar, coming to you, you mentioned about using your social media platform as a way to make art more approachable and understandable for the masses, which is lovely. So how do you think that millennials can be encouraged to engage more effectively with the art world? What do you think needs to change in the art world in terms of promoting young talent and paving the way for fresh ideas? Or is it purely that people need to, communicate more on this topic? So what are your thoughts on this?
I genuinely feel that one should not hold back. One should not hold back because, when I started about 5 years ago, there were many galleries that I was showing works with. They were still very traditional in their outlook. Like I mentioned, that they weren't really, for the motion that you should place your artwork on social media. You should wait for the right time. But I genuinely feel something as timeless as art, something that is a response to your times, or you never know what is the cause or effect. Art could be a response, but also could be used to drive an instinct or change mindsets. Art is such a powerful tool. Why would you hold it back? And that's where I think somewhere having been a lawyer, I was not intimidated by people's opinions. I also decided, and I realized along the way, I mean, something that, the legal world has shown me, that whatever you're not, considering, you're choosing. So, I chose to live my life a certain way. And my journey is basically a product of two different fields. One is a very whimsical, eclectic world, but there also has to be a certain discipline in the way we basically, process that information and be able to reach out. What is the point if I have to wait for 30 years before an artwork of mine gets sold or, gains any sort of propensity? So while a lot of people did tell me that, switching from law and becoming a fine artist, that too in this country, is an economic suicide, I told them I don't think that will be the case because, I truly believe in my work. I know what I'm creating. And I don't think there are, in today's day and age, when we have so many platforms available to us, like Instagram is the number one free visual platform available to you. Why should you hold back? I mean, of course, you may have, your apprehensions, especially designers, with respect to how much should you share because of plagiarism, one way or the other. But you have to choose between, whether you want your product to be out there. And then, of course, there are safeguards. So you have to also work in a way that, it's a balanced point of view. So having said that, I would strongly suggest to other artists, budding artists, who feel that they have the potential and they have this fire burning within them, that they have this creative potential, to not hold back. Let not others' opinions, hold you back from trying anything, because doubt kills more career options than failure ever will, because, you just need to go ahead and take your chances. And you never know, maybe, a few setbacks will fuel your journey even more. It happened in my case. So I would definitely say, put yourself out there. Think about it, have a strategy, and put yourself out there, for sure.
Right, and have confidence. That's wonderful. So Ridhi, as a young designer, how has the fashion landscape changed for you in this new normal world? There's a notable shift in the customer mood, and how are you thinking about concepts, themes, color stories, silhouettes? Are you making changes to the way that you work or to your creations?
So I feel the dynamics of the industry have changed a lot post the pandemic, and it is constantly changing. Of course, we're hoping that things are back to normal soon, but a lot of people are now scared to step out. So there's a big shift to the online space, which is always ever growing. In terms of your product section, I haven't seen much of a change. So we were always into subdued colors and subtle styling. At the same time, we were always into fun silhouettes. So that is pretty much what people have continued to like. I don't think there's a change in the way what people like. But definitely the budgets have shrunk, the market has shrunk, the wedding industry has shrunk. So overall, the demand has gone down. So it's very, very important to curate and create the product according to what your clients are looking for. But at the same time, I feel the likes of the customers are still the same. So I don't think we've seen a lot of change in that.
Right, right.
And the biggest factor is that now people are also online. So, they're looking for things that are easy to understand. Of course, nothing very complicated. So that is also one of the key things to keep in mind.
Right, and your brand has always been sort of a front runner in both affordability as well as ease of wearing. So that's, I think it's been an advantage for you, right? So speaking of the shift in fashion, Rahul, we've definitely observed this shift from digital to from everything to digital. So it's like this new phygital model, and you are the front runner in this in terms of everybody is talking about your Paris Couture Week show, which you briefly did touch upon. So can you share a little bit about what goes into this process of digital creation for just a digital viewing, and what was the experience like? What are some of the changes that you observed in this this fashion week versus last year? You mentioned cost, but in terms of for buyers, for media, what were the other changes that you observed?
Obviously cost I was trying to give an advantage, but definitely as a designer or a lot of journalists believe, like actual show you cannot replace with anything. Actual show is often, if it goes really really well, it's almost like creating some kind of magic which transports you somewhere else. So often, like a few things which appear in a physical show, you cannot do that. But on other hand, digital shows also do have its own advantages. Like you can control what you want to show. You can always create things, focus on details, focus on actually stronger areas which you want to communicate. On the other hand, and one more thing is there, which I'm sharing right now with you. When I had last Paris Couture Week, although collection was really appreciated and all that, but still when you're competing with giants like Dior, Chanel, or Valentino, their just expense on set and venue is sometimes more than €1 million. And you as a brand is going with probably 100 to 200,000 euros as a budget. Beyond that, you can't spend. So actually, they're actually just set expense. And then after that, their entire larger than life character. And then when actually editors, they go and sit over there, there's a huge gap what a young brand can do in Paris. But here, it got limited to the screen. So that is why I think when I look at Financial Times or some of the very influential media, when they talked about my show amongst the best shows in the entire Paris Haute Couture Week, I would have not experienced that, very honestly, because when you look at Chanel shows and when you look at when Karl Lagerfeld live, he made entire beach inside Palais Royal and something like that. Probably you need to be very easily, these brand sizes are like few lakh crore is their turnover, is their annual turnover. You cannot reach over there. So that was a very good advantage for a brand like ours. Like everything came down to similar viewing experience. And somehow the honesty of the story, the backstory and all that somehow connected with the audience really, really well. I was also recently, Imran Ahmed sent me one of the, podcast link where he said, look, like Tim was praising your film more than Dior and everybody. So in one of the BO podcasts, so I got really excited, and this can only happen when you are competing on the similar ways. Otherwise, fashion industry internationally is a lot more lopsided than in India. So that was a great advantage. But any which way, I'm just sharing this with you. The whole excitement of backstage, whole excitement of like models, you have got editors walking in, although you do it only for 200 to 300 key people, which happens. Otherwise also those fashion shows reach to people digitally only. So that's why the fashion shows get 100,000 viewing or maybe 1 million viewing and all that. It's because of digital platforms which goes through. Probably Vogue has got its own, then Elle, then your own channels. So that's how it goes to people. Earlier also it was going digital, but this time, even production, even event went digital. That's the only difference. But I'm sure on other side of pandemic, things are going to go back to the normal, fashion shows and all that. Because that is also a big industry. Models, they do get paid. Makeup artists, usually for them, it's like only that season when fashion shows are happening to be able to earn. So, when you talk about inclusivity and all that, just because you're in digital, you cannot really leave behind, such a flourishing industry, which is already there.
Makes sense. Lovely. So Bahaar, coming to you, you briefly talked about plagiarism digitally, and that is something, it is actually a big concern that many do have. And given, your experience in law and the fact that you're a creative artist yourself, what would be your advice to people who are concerned about, maintaining their signature and individuality online, how to do that while, also countering people who might want to copy?
It's like a balance you have to maintain. You have to be aware of your rights in the country. So, for example, you will be automatically be protected under the Copyright Act if you're creating something. Okay, but the moment, by virtue of, say, Section 15 of the Copyright Act, the moment you have created 50 or more of the same product, then it ceases to have protection under the Copyright Act. Then you have to mandatorily register your design under the Designs Act. The entire premise behind this is that, copyright affords 60 years of protection if you automatically created something, like if a designer has created a sketch. Now, if I would be a designer and I know if I'm not going to scale as much, I would probably create 49 designs. You must have, the designers here must be aware of that case between Ritu Kumar and Diva, where she could not be afforded the protection because she had gone above 50 samples of the same design, and she had not registered her design. Now, in this country, we should be alive to how things work. Enforcement is a pain. It really does. You cannot keep, monitoring the person who's copying your works. So you have to be strategic about it. It's not the speed when it comes to a creative field. The direction in which you're going is as important as the speed, so that somebody is not reaping the benefits of your creative inputs. So this is where I would say, I think, stick to your stamp, because that's what sets you apart from everyone else. And believe in yourself, keep creating, keep evolving. You should not, just because, a lot of people also will try to tell you that, you must have a language of your body of work. I'm sorry, we all are evolving minds. It has to reflect in your work as well. If I'm not the same person from a Monday to a Sunday, how can my work be the same or stagnant in the next 5 years? If I'm doing a certain kind of embroidery, who decides whether my work should look consistent or constant? You're evolving, we constantly expose. These are, age-old back kind of theories on, old wives' tales, where they basically tell you, oh, you must setting out, like how modern artists, Hussain from a Sabawala, but in today's date, if you see contemporary artists or designers, they are constantly reinventing themselves. And why should you be afraid to show the same? Of course, strategize, your scale, how much you will be leveraging on the same. And if you think you will be able to sell more than 50 or 100 units, Design Act is your key. You have to go and just register yourself. Tomorrow, if I choose to do prints, Z-Clip prints of my artwork, I will go register it. If it's an open-ended print edition. If it's a limited edition, I'm safe. So these are the same rules that would apply to a designer also. So, being aware of the law of the land is as important as just putting all your focus on creating the product to safeguard yourself. Having said that, yes, please go all out, because unless you're active on social media and you are sticking to your niche in terms of what you are creating and being true to yourself, people will not know what you're creating, and people's attention span on social media is 10 seconds max. So please keep showing what you're creating, because everyone wants to know.
Definitely. So coming to discuss business, Ridhi, I want to understand, what are you doing to sort of maximize sales during this time? It's a difficult time, and it is important to sort of make sure that people are shopping, but at the same time, people are a lot more value conscious right now. So is discounting the future? What are your thoughts around discounting in general?
So I feel, of course, the way the market is operating in today's date is completely different. There are a lot of deals available around. So even if a designer doesn't want to give out any deals, I think they're just forced to give out some offers because the whole market is giving out deals. And the consumers are so less because the market size has shrunk so much. The wedding sizes have reduced so much that you're forced to give out good pricing to customers. Though luckily, because we have always been known for affordable luxury, we didn't really have to discount much on our products, and our production is anyways very, very limited. So we didn't have to, like, we were lucky enough to maintain the pricing for our new arrivals and our new collections. However, we did explore flash sales post the pandemic, and that worked really well for us. But at the same time, we don't believe in discounting too much, and hopefully we can continue the same. But of course, there's a lot more that you can do with engaging your customers. Again, engaging content is very important. Your product is the key. So if your product is good, I think you're pretty much sorted. Half your battle is anyways won. And the second most aspect is to create good content to push out the best marketing in today's day and age, because the people cannot come to your store, they cannot touch and feel, they cannot experience the whole thing as they could do before. So creating that experience, also giving customers the confidence to engage with you, giving a proper customer experience has become even more important, and customer service has become even more important in today's age.
Yeah, definitely. And I think understanding what the customer is looking for is, I think, the golden question that everybody is sort of wondering right now.
Yeah.
Rahul, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think customers are looking for right now? You have been, I think you've been inspired by Gandhiji, and is subtle the future? Are people going to downsize the outfits that they're going to buy, or are they going to invest more in quality? What exactly is it that customers are looking for? And are trends even going to still be a thing, or are people just going to shift to classics?
As I said earlier, weddings or festivity drives all the craftsmanship in India. In designer wear, or it's all about 2,000 rupee chanderi sari, people buy for the purpose, for the occasion. When you look at weddings, recently, 2 days back, only one of the brides, she got married, she had a home wedding and she wore one of the lehengas, which we did. And it was equally beautiful, because what we have to realize, what we need to understand, when budgets are shrinking, any which way for a big fat Indian wedding, the budget on clothing was only 5%. By cutting your 5% expense, you are not going to save a lot. So what people are saving, and when they had in a wedding 5,000 people coming and hosting them, booking hotels and everything, in that spending was more, and the flying out, flying in, and all that kind of thing. And sometimes in some of the weddings, they also had Bollywood stars coming in and performing and all that. Those were high ticket value things. But designer clothes were even if your entire budget for bridal and groom's clothes and family's clothes, it would be probably, I don't know, it would be 5 to 7% of entire budget. So in that way, to my surprise, my July has been much better than last year's July. And much better means it's not 3 to 4 times of the sales what we achieved in July.
That's amazing.
And a lot of designers were going on 70% discount. We were kind of getting some of the messages on WhatsApp, what is a 10%, 20% discount and all that. But somehow people are understanding, our prices were so good in terms of what we believe in. And that's what the Gandhian idea is. What Gandhiji always said, I'm in middle. Your customer is your God, and your end producer is also your God. If you underpay him, overcharge other one, it's never going to work out really, really well. So with this philosophy, we always did the pricing. Although there has been some things which we are trying to pass on little benefits. Maybe somebody logs in the website, they can get 10% discount, or some of the otherwise we never go on sale. Maybe some of the pieces which we have 2 or 3 in inventory, those might be up to 30% discount. But beyond that, we don't have to try a lot. It was just a matter of opening a store. In Mumbai store also, just 4 or 5 days were opened. Again, people started buying things. Although a lot of buying is happening through WhatsApp, and people go onto website, they get in touch with my team. So I think, often, it's a similar situation even for business. What was for the COVID-19, the fear is a bigger killer than actually disease itself. So although we all have to be very, very careful, I'm not saying that one has to take it lightly, because the thing about pandemic is because it does not make you seriously ill. So that is why your passing on infection becomes far more, far more, there are more chances that you're going to pass on the infection. So in that way, like, we all have to be extra cautious, extra precaution, but we all have to go back to our work. We all need to start working back. We cannot, and like now what has happened, like this, there's a genuine concern about disease. But when this disease becomes excuse regarding everything, regarding salaries, regarding rents, regarding everything, I think this is where the real problem happens. So often this thought process is like far more
Right.
challenging than anything else. We all need to be in it together. More we try to play COVID-19 card in a negotiation and all that, much more problematic for the future business is going to become. So that's what my belief in. Stay positive,
Yeah.
work on your strength. And my strength is slow fashion. My strength is creating really beautiful pieces. Today I was speaking to my design team. We have to make, I was telling, we have to make most beautiful dupattas we ever made. We never bring pricing in between when we're designing something. We will look at
I think
pricing
that's
later
beautiful.
on.
That's why your
Yeah.
creations are so beautiful.
So this is
Right.
what we are thinking. And when this pandemic hit, like, I did not do, although stores were not open when I did my Paris couture line. So I did not reduce the surface of embroidery. I did not go on very strategic, one flower kept somewhere else, and saying like this is a new normal. People are not. No, ultimately, how many man hours that particular outfit is generating for job, like in terms of job, that is also equally important, as much important as the pricing of the product is.
Right, right. So interesting that you mentioned this COVID-19 card. And my last question for today, before I open it up to audience questions, I could honestly keep going because I have so many questions for all three of you. But my last question for today is to Bahaar. You have this law experience, and what is your advice to designers and young brands or young professionals in general who are dealing with rents, excess stock, payment issues? So how can they sort of what can they do to work around this?
Right in the beginning when the pandemic hit and the shockwaves had hit every industry, I'll just carry on from where Rahul left off. Honestly, I've never been busier. I was advising legally, I was painting all the time. And on top of that, I had started taking up a lot of cases with domestic violence. So, whenever there are extreme situations, there is always a rise in one kind of phenomena as opposed to other. So I started creating art, which was getting influenced by my interactions with the clients who I was advising on domestic violence issues. At the same time, I was also advising a lot of creatives with respect, creative people with respect to their rents. Now, legally speaking, landlords are not obliged as per law to reduce the rents, but it's a matter of negotiation because a lot of people who could not afford paying those rents, if you could negotiate with your landlord that, if we leave, you may not get a buyer or, someone to rent out your property for a significant amount of time. And if you could accommodate, then well and good. But otherwise, legally speaking, there is no law or no notification. There were Supreme Court cases on the same also. The court said it is completely a premise of the landlord. As far as moving your removing your stock is concerned, you have to get creative because these are business calls you have to take. You have to try and involve the audience a little. Discounts and sales is one aspect, but I would say that, even if people, industries or designers who have not been able to pick up their practice, keep creating because, it's like human behavior is infectious. And if you create something novel, everyone will be glued to it like a moth to a light or a teenager to a phone. So if you can stand out in your creative process, even if you have limited number of people, it will go pretty far. So, what was your next question in terms of?
So basically, how can young brands work around this entire issue around rents, staff cuts, salary cuts?
Right. And also on humanitarian grounds, you should not ideally be cutting the salary of your staff. Although I know it is extremely difficult, especially in the restaurant and hospitality business. A lot of people, I know 70% of the restaurants had to shut down in Delhi because they could not afford to keep, paying the salaries of all their staff members. And there was a lot of retrenchment. But having said that, again, there were cases that were brought up in Supreme Court, and you cannot, force somebody to pay you a salary when they themselves cannot afford to maintain it. So yes, across sectors there have been salary cuts, which is fine, but on humanitarian grounds, if you can continue to support your staff members who have been loyal to you, please do so. That's what my advice would be. And of course, have a shift in the way you process your clothes. Like as an artist, I can speak for myself. I don't just paint, I sculpt. I start creating in virtual reality, and I do kinetic installations which are traveling shows, which can also generate a lot of awareness. So I collaborate across brands, and a lot with the fashion industry to create a kind of awareness, a symbiotic relationship where a landscape is set for people to understand fashion or art is not just a product for consumerism. It's actually a thought-provoking, or it's like a platform for bringing about change. And it's not necessary to always be voicing opinions or resharing news on your platforms. If you're a creative person, you can create these opportunities to instill people to think in a certain way. That is the power of art, of fashion today, which has stood the test of time. So get novel, go out there, and you won't have to resort to discounts or sales at all, because yes, human mind is empowered and is focused on something that they see as new, and they will value it. I'm speaking for myself. I have not had to roll discounts during this time.
I want to add here, like, not to discount like hospitality industry, a lot of industries, manufacturing industries has been hit really badly. My thing is often like for everything, even simple thing like, sometimes school fee, simple thing, very, very simple day-to-day things. And so in that way, like often this becomes like such a useful thing. So in that way, if you have to look at like in totality entire situation just for balancing that, maybe our rents have been very inflated for last few years. Maybe that needs a correction, and people need to come together to get like that kind of correction, so that people can start ultimately. Because of COVID, if you stop spending, if money flows stops, that is what is the bigger jerk for economy than anything else. So
again, because
my point of view was this money cycle needs to again start flowing, rather than sitting quietly and thinking, oh, this is COVID-19 situation, I should just hibernate right now. I think this is what the wrong thing is. You have to start working. You have to start pushing
things.
That's
a sentiment. I'm hoping that, it will change amongst people, because they're also realizing we've been lucky during the pandemic. We still have the internet. We have essential commodities. So long as you can be watchful and safeguard yourself and protect your family members, take the necessary precautions, there is no reason to let that fear stop you from living your regular life, honestly. So,
ups and downs happen.
Yeah.
I think this has been a very positive and wonderful chat, because takeaways that I've had is that no matter what is happening around us, to keep going, to not stop, to have a positive outlook, and to keep creating and inventing, and it will get better. So I think this has been a really wonderful conversation. I'm going to open it up to the audience. A few people have asked questions, and so we have Amber Tiwari who wants to ask a question to Rahul. I think, Amber, if you could ask the question yourself. You can just unmute yourself. Shall I ask it?
Yeah, I think we can ask on his behalf.
Okay. So Rahul, if anyone wants to do a project of craft cluster on handloom craft, what are the challenges one may face afterwards? After one gets into it, and later on, how would one promote that particular as the new creation out of it?
I would say best thing is like, right now the craftsmen, they need the most important work, because most of the craftsmen, like for example, a business like us, fine, we can survive even without sale for 1 year also. We are robust enough, but somehow a lot of craftsmen, may not even survive even for 1 month during this pandemic. So it is really, really important to go out to them, and sometimes for social media, it might also bring a better wisdom if you show a kind of collaboration with the craft cluster, maybe with the weaver who are working with, being very transparent of the process, being together in it, might be a better idea for future. And obviously in my earlier things also, I always said, most of the handlooms clusters in India, weavers are seriously underpaid. I think in that way, I really feel, um, as an entrepreneur, if we can contribute in bringing fair wages to the handloom weavers, it is really must.
Okay. So we have a question from Shailesh Bhatia to Bahaar. How is art price decided? Is it the number of work hours that go into it, or the creativeness, or some other factor?
It's a culmination of a lot of things. It's not just what the market decides. It's I think you have to also see the trajectory of the artist, in terms of how prolific they are, how consistent they are. It's not just creating a work of art and then leaving it at that. You have to be consistent with your practice, where all you've been able to show, and also the critical value that the artist is generating. Of course, ultimately the price points, it should, is decided by the artist itself. But like for instance, if I'm showing with the gallery, most often than not, when we're showing with other people, they also guide you as to what your success rate, your reach, everything is. So it's not just the content that you're creating with your hands in terms of the innovation, as well as the time that has been employed. Sometimes, like, let me give you an example. Atul Dodia once sketched one charcoal pencil mark on a canvas which sold for 1 crore. I mean, and it was represented as the female genital, and it was sold like that. But so a lot of people mocked it, and a lot of times you would wonder, how is this even art with a banana taped on the wall, right? There's a lot more than just visual, the visual appeal of an art. A lot of it is also conceptual. So it all depends on what all ingredients have gone into it. It's almost like a culmination of a journey. And if you see the trajectory and the appreciation that an artwork receives, with time, you'll be able to justify the cost that is attached to the same as well.
Right. So we have a question for Ridhi and Rahul. How did you survive without the labor which left at the time of the pandemic? So Ridhi, if you want to take, and then Rahul.
So it was definitely a very challenging time for all of us, especially for the labor, because they have gone through a lot of trouble staying in the city. And due to the troubles that they faced, a lot of them migrated back to their villages. And but of course, at the same time, the markets have also shrunk, and the demand has gone down. So we were pretty much able to create that balance between the demand and production. So that went off well. The good thing is that the markets are opening up again, and the craftsmen are ready to be, they're ready to come back. And we've been able to support a lot of them through this pandemic, and hopefully we'll be able to do that in future.
Okay, lovely. Rahul, did you have any thoughts on this?
I'd just say this, as an entrepreneur, we always wait for orders to come before you start working. Sometimes situation demands you need to start working much before then orders come in your way. So when you start focusing on work, then you are able to support your karigars, your embroiderers, everybody where they are, because we especially work with a lot of reverse migration, where a lot of our karigars actually work from villages and all that. So we could support them when they could work from home. And actual, if I say effective lockdown for us, was only for 45 days. So during 45 days, we paid everybody. We took care of 46 days, being precise. And then oppose that, we do not wait for orders to come, because there was a big fear of our market. But I always said this, that Future is always uncertain. Enjoy the present and feel like create a beautiful piece, create a timeless piece. Maybe if it doesn't sell this year, it will sell next year. So that was a thought which I had. But that is going to allow more employment because, even if you're paying your workers sitting at home, looking at news every day, looking at market condition, everybody's aware right now through social media and through their phone. The biggest worry is for them that if I do not get back to work, my job might be gone. So we made sure in our organization, not a single person is either furloughed or is laid off. So we kept working with everybody. We are back with everybody now. I think often, as an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs are risk takers. Sometimes you have to take more risk in life. So this is this kind of phase.
Right. So we have a question from Harshita Agarwal to all three of the speakers with regards to discounting. How far is too far?
I can go on this. Actually, during the pandemic, as expected, art prices were rising and people were ready to buy the works for whatever price because they also realized art is akin to property. It's a unique piece of asset. So everyone started investing in art. But now this is a conscious decision I took personally that, I did not want to enter the auction market right now because they would artificially increase the prices of my work so much that tomorrow, if it does not sell in the auction, my market would crash. And I was very clear in my approach that I want to be in more homes than in those 5 collector homes. Like I'd rather be in hundreds of homes right now because I'm young, I'm prolific, I can do it. You never know. I don't want my future to be uncertain. So I ensured that my prices did not fluctuate too much in the last 2 years. I ensured I had control over it. So even now, when I did have the opportunity to increase the prices, manifold, especially after Dubai show, when they, like a lot of people who are from the collector world realized I'm with, like a lot of these premium homes in the international market also. I ensured I stayed away from it. So that way, my art market has stayed stable. I've not had to give discounts which were like 20-30% off. That's the kind of discount I can only afford to a family member, if at all, because I can take 2 to 3 months to create something with my own hands. And that's why I do understand when Rahul says we have to ensure that we attribute the true value to our Indian artisans, especially women artisans, because they're the backbone of this country. It's so important to give the value. So it's important not to artificially increase, inflate, or even reduce your prices. Be consistent, because ultimately people are coming to you for your unique piece of work. So having said that, if designers are selling their works at a certain price, I don't think you should expect too many discounts, because the work that has gone into creating that beautiful piece of art or garment or whatever it may be remains the same. It's just that a perception change should not change your attitude completely, because you're investing in a tangible product. It's not a momentary investment. So please be mindful of that. So don't really go into this whole, discounting. Buy less, buy whatever you need. Don't hoard, but definitely give due credit to the value of the product at hand. And that's what I would want to say.
Pooja, I think Harshita has asked to elaborate on the question and to speak if possible.
I was actually going to ask the first question that we got from one of the members of the audience, because I think that's been left out. Okay, so this is for Rahul. Someone called Redmi has asked, what do you think why Indian designers are not reaching that height of luxury like other international brands such as Dior, Zuhair, Murad?
I think, one has to understand, like, when you're operating in top, 4 fashion destinations, your chances of like being far well known is much more higher. If I may ask you, do you think top Chinese designer? China is not a lesser market. One may not even know the name. Or top, Australian designer. or top designer. What we always see in media press, because of the limitation of time calendar in a year, usually designers who participate in London, Milan, Paris, or New York, we always hear about them. So it does not make anybody less of a designer if they are not able to participate in these 4 fashion weeks. They are like amazing talents out there everywhere. India is no less in that way. But nevertheless, if you talk about Dior or these kind of labels, which are more than 100-year-old, or maybe more than 15-year-old, and backed by big houses like LVMH, and they have, I think Dior last year was around 5.3 lakh crore. That's the turnover. It's huge, I think. So 5.3 billion was the turnover. And that's pretty big, pretty massive. So in that way, the amount of advertising, the amount of media control, the amount of everything what they have is disproportionate to any. And India is fairly a young country in that way. If you look at the fashion evolution, I'm sure in next 10 years or so, we are going to see quite a few Indian names out there in the global list of big names.
Great. So Devangi, do you want to go ahead and ask the last question for today?
Actually, we have so many additional questions. It's
yes,
like tough to choose.
I think all our
so
speakers
I understand, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I have a question from Disha Shriyan. I had just launched my label before the pandemic. The market is down, and being a sustainable label, it's becoming a bit expensive for us, as people are not willing to pay even when they are liking the product. So what do you suggest we could do to overcome this? They haven't specified a specific speaker, so I think anybody can take this.
So, Ridhi, you can go ahead.
No, Ridhi, go ahead.
I think there's something wrong with her connection.
I think her screen is frozen.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Devangi, why don't you go ahead with this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, it's definitely a very challenging time. I think, so as much as we've discussed discounting through this period of time, I think it is something that does work for small brands. I know it's a controversial thing to say, but there is a definite uptick in sales that happen when slight discounting does happen. So if it's required, I would say don't shy away from it if it's necessary. Obviously, don't employ it as your permanent strategy. That's not the way forward for your brand. But if it's necessary to do so for a temporary period of time, then use it wisely and effectively, and then stop once things are better. So this is something to consider. The second thing to consider, of course, we've had a lot of conversations around social media presence and how to employ that in an effective manner today. So use your Instagram and your Facebook wisely and try to sell as much as you can through those platforms. It's a very, very effective tool when done correctly. So, try digital ads, whether it's a small spend that you do on Google ads or Facebook ads, to just get your brand out there and to have more people see your brand. I think visibility is also something that's really important, and which eventually does lead to conversions, and hang in there. I think all the speakers today have been very motivational in the fact that they've shared, that just to keep going through difficult periods of time, and times will get better.
I would like to add, I was doing a study for HP recently, and it's very important to know how to identify the influencer also that you would be going ahead with on social media, because numbers on social media are monopoly money. You should be mindful of the fact that the person you choose to speak about your product genuinely resonates with the product, as because here you're creating trust in people. So it's not just about the numbers that they command in terms of following, because you really don't know if that kind of audience, whether genuine or not, or whether it's relevant or not to your product. So it's very important to go with someone you identify or your brand actually is synonymous with. Having said that, yes, discounts are a good strategy, but also again, it's a trust factor. If you're giving discounts of 40-50% right when you've started creating, people would actually think, hey, you have your margins are that much higher. So be a little realistic in terms of even the discounts that you would want to offer. It should be lucrative, but they should not question your product at the same time. Yeah, these two.
Yeah.
And yes, the digital presence is extremely, extremely important. Please leverage on it.
And one idea I had also, if in case a brand does not want to discount, another strategy that one could employ is to create a lower price range where the MRP itself is slightly lower. If you feel that your audience is looking for lower price points, then obviously don't create the same look for less. That's not an effective strategy. But to create a contemporary line or to a more affordable line, that is something that one could think about.
Yes, I'm actually working on that currently for my label. So I completely agree with what you're saying, and that makes absolute sense rather than getting into the whole discount mode. So with that, I would like to bring this session to an end. And we are absolutely, absolutely honored to have all of you. All the time that you have spared for us today has been just amazing. And I'm sure all our members today have had a lot to take from this little session that we had, especially the students. And it's been very, very enlightening that all of you have spoken on such a positive note today. Very unlike the whole pandemic situation where everyone's been so bogged down with the businesses going down and all sorts of problems happening in several industries, across businesses, everything. So it has been really positive. You all have given us messages like we should create happiness out of the situation that we are in today. And social media is not just for selling your products, but it's also to inspire our budding generation of students and designers. And lastly, I think we should end it on the fact that we should all think positively, have a lot of confidence, and let the creative juices flow, as one of the speakers mentioned in the whole session today. And I'm sure we're going to be able to take the industry to greater heights and probably match up the Dior and Chanel levels like one of our audiences have asked today. So thank you for joining us today, Rahul, Ridhi, Bahaar, Devangi. And last but not the least, this event would not have been possible without Asmita. She has been the content curator for today. So a big round of applause for her, please. And thank you so much, everyone, for your time, all the members. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Pooja.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a great session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Pooja, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Pooja and Rahul, I am Dinesh Jain.
Yes,
congratulations
hello,
for a very nice program.
Much.
Compliments.
Thank
it was very informative.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful hearing from you.
Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you, Dinesh ji.